As soon as David and his men arrived at Ziklag on the third day, they saw that the Amalekites had attacked Ziklag. The Amalekites invaded the Negev area, attacked Ziklag, and burned the city. They took all the women in Ziklag, both young and old, as prisoners. They didn't kill anyone, they only took them as prisoners. When David and his men came to Ziklag, they found the city burning. Their wives, sons, and daughters were all gone. The Amalekites had taken them. David and the other men in his army cried loudly until they were too weak to cry anymore. The Amalekites had taken David's two wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, who had been the wife of Nabal from Carmel. All the men in the army were sad and angry because their sons and daughters were taken as prisoners. The men were talking about killing David with stones. This upset David very much, but he found strength in the Lord his God. David said to Abiathar the priest, "Bring the ephod." Then David prayed to the Lord, "Should I chase the people who took our families? Will I catch them?" The Lord answered, "Chase them, you will catch them, and you will save your families." David took the 600 men with him and went to Bezor ravine. About 200 of his men stayed there because they were too weak and tired to continue. But David and the other 400 men continued to chase the Amalekites. David's men found an Egyptian in a field and took him to David. They gave the Egyptian some water to drink and some food to eat. The Egyptian had not had any food or water for 3 days and nights, so they gave him a piece of fig cake and 2 clusters of raisins. He felt better after eating. David asked the Egyptian, "Who is your master? Where do you come from?" The Egyptian answered, "I am an Egyptian, the slave of an Amalekite. 3 days ago I got sick, and my master left me behind. We had attacked the Negev area where the Kerethites live. We also attacked Judah and the Negev area where Caleb's people live. We burned Ziklag." David asked the Egyptian, "Will you lead me to the people who took our families?" The Egyptian answered, "If you make a special promise before God, I will help you find them. But you must promise that you will not kill me or give me back to my master." The Egyptian led David to the Amalekites. They were lying around on the ground, eating and drinking. They were celebrating with the many things they had taken from the Philistines and from Judah. David attacked them and killed them. They fought from sunrise until the evening of the next day. None of the Amalekites escaped, except for 400 young men who jumped onto their camels and rode away. David got back everything the Amalekites had taken, including his 2 wives. Nothing was missing. They found all the children and old people, all their sons and daughters, and all their valuables. They got back everything the Amalekites had taken. David brought everything back. He took all the sheep and cattle. His men led these animals to the front of the group and said, "This is David's prize." David came to the 200 men who had stayed at Bezor ravine. These were the men who were too weak and tired to follow David. They came out to meet him and the soldiers who went with him. They greeted David and his army as they approached. There were some troublemakers in the group who went with David who started complaining. "These 200 men didn't go with us, so why should we give them any of the things we took? These men get nothing but their own wives and children." David answered, "No, my brothers, don't do that. Think about what the Lord gave us. He let us defeat the enemy that attacked us. No one will listen to what you say. The share will be the same for the men who stayed with the supplies and for the man who went into battle. Everyone will share alike." David made this an order and rule for Israel. This rule continues even today. When David got to Ziklag, he sent some of the things he took from the Amalekites to his friends, the leaders of Judah. David said, "Here is a present for you that we took from the Lord's enemies." David sent some of the gifts to the leaders in Bethel, Ramoth in the Negev, Jatir, Arior, Siphmoth, Eshtemoa, Rachel, the cities of the Jerahmeelites, and the cities of the Kenites, Hormah, Borashan, Athak, and Hebron, and to all the other places where David and his men had stayed. These were the men from Manasseh who joined David when he went to the town of Ziklag: Adnah, Jozabad, Adiel, Michael, Jozabad, Elihu, and Zelathai. All of them were generals from the tribe of Manasseh. They helped David fight against bad men who were going around the country and stealing things from people. All these men of Manasseh were brave soldiers. They became leaders in David's army. More and more men came every day to help David, so he had a large and powerful army. Meanwhile, the Philistines fought against the Israelites, and the Israelites ran from them. There were many dead bodies that fell at Mount Gilboa. The Philistines fought hard against Saul and his sons. They killed Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua. The battle grew even more intense around Saul. The archers closed in on Saul and wounded him with many arrows. Saul told the boy who carried his armor, "Take your sword and kill me, or else these foreigners will do it and torment me as well." But Saul's helper was afraid and refused to kill him. So Saul took out his own sword and fell on it. When the helper saw that Saul was dead, he took out his own sword, fell on it, and died there with Saul. So Saul, his 3 sons, and the boy who carried his armor all died together that day. The Israelites who lived on the other side of the valley saw the Israelite army running away. They saw that Saul and his sons were dead, so they left their cities and ran away. Then the Philistines came and lived in their cities. The next day, the Philistines went back to take the things from the dead bodies. They found Saul and his 3 sons dead on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines cut off Saul's head and took all his armor. They carried the news to the Philistines and to all the temples of their idols. They put Saul's armor in the temple of Ashtoreth. The Philistines also hung Saul's body on the wall of Bethshan. The people living at Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines did to Saul. So all the soldiers of Jabesh went to Bethshan. They marched all night, went to the wall of Bethshan, and took down the bodies of Saul and his sons. Then they carried them to Jabesh. There the people of Jabesh burned the bodies of Saul and his 3 sons. Later, they buried the bones of Saul and his 3 sons under the big tree in Jabesh. Then the people of Jabesh showed their sadness. They did not eat for 7 days. The Philistines fought against the Israelites. The Israelites ran away from the Philistines. Many Israelites were killed on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines continued chasing Saul and his sons. They caught them and killed them. The Philistines killed Saul's sons Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua. The fighting was heavy around Saul. The archers shot Saul with their arrows and wounded him. Then Saul said to the helper who carried his armor, "Pull out your sword and use it to kill me. Then those foreigners will not hurt me and make fun of me when they come." But the helper was afraid. He refused to kill Saul, so Saul used his own sword to kill himself by falling on it. When the helper saw that Saul was dead, he also fell on his own sword and died. So Saul and 3 of his sons died. All of Saul's family died together. When all the Israelites living in the valley saw that their own army had ran away, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they left their towns and ran away. Then the Philistines came into the towns and lived in them. The next day, the Philistines came to take valuable things from the dead bodies. They found Saul's body and the bodies of his sons at Mount Gilboa. The Philistines took things from Saul's body. They took Saul's head and armor. They sent messengers through all their country to tell the news to their false gods and to their people. The Philistines put Saul's armor in the temple of their false gods. They hung Saul's head in the temple of Dagon. All the people living in the town of Jabesh Gilead heard everything that the Philistines had done to Saul. All the brave men from Jabesh Gilead went to get the bodies of Saul and his sons. They brought them back to Jabesh Gilead. They buried the bones of Saul and his sons under the large tree in Jabesh. Then they showed their sadness and fasted for 7 days. Saul died because he was not faithful to the Lord. He did not obey the Lord's word. Saul also went to a medium and asked her for advice, instead of asking the Lord. That is why the Lord killed Saul and gave the kingdom to Jesse's son David. Jonathan's son was Merib-Baal. Merib-Baal was Micah's father. Micah's sons were Pithon, Melech, Teriah, and Ahaz. Ahaz was the father of Jada. Jada was the father of Elamath, Asmapheth, and Zimri. Zimri was Moses' father. Moses was the father of Benaiah. Raphiah was Benaiah's son. Eleazar was Raphiah's son. And Azel was Eleazar's son. Azel had 6 sons. Their names were Azrikam, Bacheru, Ishmael, Shariah, Obadiah, and Hanan. They were Azael's children. After David defeated the Amalekites, he went back to Ziklag. This was just after Saul had been killed. David had been there 2 days. Then on the third day, a young soldier from Saul's camp came to Ziklag. His clothes were torn and he had dirt on his head. He came to David and bowed with his face to the ground. David asked him, "Where have you come from?" The man answered, "I just came from the Israelite camp." David asked him, "Please tell me, who won the battle?" The man answered, "Our people ran away from the battle. Many of them were killed in the battle. Even Saul and his son Jonathan are dead." David said to the young soldier, "How do you know Saul and his son Jonathan are dead?" The young soldier said, "I happened to be on Mount Gilboa. I saw Saul leaning on a spear. The Philistine chariots and horse soldiers were coming closer and closer to Saul. Saul looked back and saw me. He called to me, and I answered him. Then Saul asked me who I was. I told him that I was an Amalekite. Then Saul said, 'Please kill me. I am hurt badly, and I'm about to die anyway.' He was hurt so badly that I knew he wouldn't live. So I stopped and killed him. Then I took the crown from his head and the bracelet from his arm, and brought them here to you, my lord." Then David tore his clothes to show he was very sad. All the men with him did the same thing. They were very sad and cried. They did not eat until evening. They cried because Saul and his son Jonathan were dead. David and his men cried for the Lord's people, and they cried for Israel. They cried because Saul, his son Jonathan, and many Israelites had been killed in battle. Then David talked with the young soldier who had told him about Saul's death. David asked, "Where are you from?" The young soldier answered, "I am the son of a foreigner. I am an Amalekite." David said to the young soldier, "Why were you not afraid to kill the Lord's chosen king?" Then David told the Amalekite, "You are responsible for your own death. You said you killed the Lord's chosen king, so your own words prove you are guilty." Then David called one of his young servants and told him to kill the Amalekite. So the young Israelite killed him. David sang a sad song about Saul and his son Jonathan. David told his men to teach the song to the people of Judah. This song is called the Bow, and it is written in the book of Jasher. Israel, your beauty was ruined on your hills. Oh, how those heroes fell! Don't tell the news in Gath. Don't announce it in the streets of Ashkelon. Those Philistine cities would be happy. Those foreigners would be glad. May no rain or dew fall on you, mountains of Gilboa. May there be no offerings coming from your fields. The shields of the heroes rusted there. Saul's shield was not rubbed with oil. Jonathan's bow killed its share of enemies, and Saul's sword killed its share. They have spilled the blood of men now dead. They cut into the fat of strong men. Saul and Jonathan, how dear they were to us. In life they loved being together, and even death did not separate them. They were faster than eagles and stronger than lions. Daughters of Israel, cry for Saul. Saul gave you beautiful red dresses and covered them with gold jewelry. Strong men have fallen in battle. Jonathan is dead on Gilboa's hills. Jonathan, my brother, I miss you. I enjoyed your friendship so much. Your love for me was wonderful, stronger than the love of women. Heroes have fallen in battle. Their weapons of war are lost.